Richard Ramirez. He gouged out Maxine Zazara's eyes after brutally murdering her and her husband. Her eyes were never located, and in court he actually laughed as they were describing the crime scene. In childhood, his father would tie him to a cross in a graveyard as a form of punishment. His trial was already bizarre, and the trial was delayed when one of the jurors was fatally shot following a dispute with her boyfriend. When Phyllis Singletary failed to show up to juror deliberations, that's when the court found out that she'd been murdered. Richard Ramirez had nasty teeth. In one of his stolen cars, they found a business card for a dentist office, and when they called, they found out that he'd been in for x-rays and was scheduled to come back. And this is so frustrating. The police officers set up a button that the employees could press to discreetly alert them once Richard walked in, and they did, but for whatever reason, it didn't alert them. So the appointment ended and he walked away. Because of the brutality and lack of remorse, he was sentenced to 19 death sentences. But he died of cancer at San Quentin Prison in 2013, which means he was imprisoned at the same time and place as Scott Peterson. I wonder if they ever talked. If you have a case you'd like me to talk about, let me know in the comments and follow for more.
Did you know that Satanist and serial killer Richard Ramirez, better known as the Night Stalker, married Doreen Leoy in 1996 after 10 years on death row? She divorced him in 2013, after 17 years, despite her earlier promise to commit suicide on the day of his execution.
Facts about the Night Stalker Richard Ramirez you may or may not know. Richard's cousin was a war vet, and when he would spend time with him, he would show him pictures of them essaying Vietnamese women and unaliving them. If that's not messed up enough, when he was 12, his cousin would unalive his wife right in front of Richard. Beginning in 1985, a woman named Doreen would write Richard 75 letters during his incarceration, and then in 1988, the couple would get married. Richard's dad was verbally and physically abusive to him, even going to the extreme of, as a form of punishment, he would tie him up to a cross in the cemetery, leave him there overnight. No one was really off limits from his crimes. He would essay children, and pretty much when he broke in, anyone that was there would get it. He broke into the home of Maxine Zazara and her husband, and after unaliving them, he would gouge at her eyes, and the eyes were never found. He loved AC/DC and even slipped up and left one of his favorite ACD hats at a crime scene. During his trial, a juror named Phyllis Singletary was unalived by her boyfriend during an altercation, and they didn't find out until she failed to show up for a jury deliberation.
I couldn't run anymore. I sat down to take a breather, and I saw a sheriff's patrol car coming down the street, and I knew that, my life was over. I was just really pissed off at the way things had turned out, that I was under arrest now. And I turned at all the people that are around me, and I spit at them. I poked my tongue out at them. I stuck it in there now, like a serpent. They finally had a pistol. We made them stand. They wouldn't be as brave as they thought they were. I didn't give a fuck at that point, because I was so fucking tired.
What's up? How long ago? What's your name? Huh? What's your name? 11.
Richard Ramirez Part 2, The Night Stalker. He moved to California, where he formed a severe drug addiction and graduated to burglary and showed interest in Satanism. Richard was arrested in 1981 and 84 for auto theft. On June 28, 1984, Ramirez unalived 79-year-old Jeannie Vinco during a burglary. On March 17, 1985, Ramirez attacked Maria Hernandez. Fortunately, she escaped, but her roommate, Dale Okazaki, wasn't so fortunate. In the very same night, he shot and unalived Salian Yu. 10 days later, he would go on to attack and unalive Vincent Zatsara and his wife, Maxine. Police realized that he developed a pattern of shooting the husband and assaulting, stabbing, and ultimately unaliving the wife. After his attack on a retired couple in May of 1985, the rate of his crimes increased. After a full-scale police operation failed to track Ramirez, the LAPD formed a task force with the FBI. Feeling the squeeze by law enforcement and the media, Ramirez left LA and traveled to San Francisco, where he would take 2 more lives. Since his attacks happened at night, the press called him the Night Stalker.
I think most humans have in them the capacity to commit murder. It is not because...
No, we don't, Richard.
They choose not to, not because they are morally superior, as they so commonly claim, but because they are imprisoned in a web of responsibilities, commitments, beliefs, and sentiments.
Richard.
And that would render murder an absurd gamble or ridiculous self-destruction.
Due to mounting DNA evidence and his criminal record, authorities were able to put a name to this Night Stalker. He was captured while in the midst of committing another crime. Residents of an LA neighborhood cornered Ramirez and beat him.
Wow, it's a joke.
His trial was constantly delayed because of various issues. Many of his followers showed up to his trial, and the majority of them were Satan worshippers. On September 20th, 1989, a jury found Ramirez guilty of all charges and recommended the death penalty. Before leaving the courtroom, he said, "Hey, big deal. Death always comes with the territory. I'll see you in Disneyland." Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more haunting content.
As to sex and violence, many people are into S&M and bondage and stuff, and there's clubs that...
Yeah, we're talking about you.
Me? Well, sex and violence? Well, No, I don't think I'll answer that. What?
זה קשה לראות שהוא מתקרב אלייך ככה.
Well, I agree. That was a stupid answer, but Jesus, this is a wicked world, and in a wicked world, wicked people are born, you know. And
People in this day and age are brainwashed and programmed like a computer at being nothing more than puppets. This nation, this country is founded in violence. Violent delights tend to have violent ends. Madness is something rare in individuals, but in groups, people, and ages, it is a rule. Killing is killing, whether done for duty, profit, or fun. Men murdered themselves into this democracy.
I hunted, assaulted, and killed over 13 people and children. 13 is just the number the media wants you to know. But I don't remember the real one. I'm Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, the embodiment of evil. I stole, I violated, I killed. These are more than just labels. They're a glimpse into the sinister reality of my deeds. My reign of terror spanned from the quiet neighborhoods of San Francisco to the bustling streets of Los Angeles. I was the nightmare that lurked in the shadows, infiltrating the sanctity of homes, the places people ought to have felt safest. I turned these homes into theaters of horror. The pattern was simple and brutal. I'd eliminate the man, exploit the woman, and take great pleasure in the terror mirrored in their eyes. I had to see it, feel it, like when I banged on Maria Hernandez's car hood before I attacked, making sure she saw me. Or when I yanked Sileon Veronica Yu out of her car, rejecting the easy kill behind glass. In Whittier, I carved out Maxine Zazara's eyes and took them with me. They labeled me an enraged killer for the savagery I showed my victims. Take Patty Higgins, her throat slashed and stabbed, or Florence Nettie Lang, beaten to death at 81 with a hammer. But the monstrosity didn't end with the murders. After the kill, I'd grow comfortable, calm. I'd take a snack from their kitchen, a sign of the sick pleasure I derived from my actions. In San Francisco, after killing Peter Pan and violating his wife Barbara, I raided their fridge, vomited on their kitchen floor, and defiled their living room. Children were not spared either. Early in my reign, a series of children were taken from their beds, violated, and then left alone. I didn't hesitate to assault a child if I found them during a break-in. Then there were the satanic symbols. I scrawled pentagrams on the wall, on the legs of my victims, linking my carnage with dark worship. Investigators started seeing a connection to Satanism. Some even feared I was a Charles Manson copycat. I would leave more of these symbols as my spree continued, compelling my victims to swear to Satan. So don't try to make sense of it or to see me as anything other than a monster. I'm Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, a predator who reveled in the terror of the night. I never sought redemption for what I did, nor do I deserve it. I am the proud architect of my own horrifying legacy.